This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thanks for being with us on this Friday night. We begin overseas with the start of a 4-day Israel-Hamas ceasefire and the release of some of the Israeli hostages being held in Gaza. Some Palestinians who were imprisoned in Israel were released in return today. Now, today's developments come 7 weeks after the start of the war between Israel and Hamas. We'll have reaction from people in Winnipeg just ahead, but we begin with the CBC's Sasha Petrusik.
The convoy of white SUVs wove its way through Gaza tonight, the first peaceful night in 7 weeks of war. Inside, 13 Israeli hostages. Their ordeal ended in a Hamas video, the frightened, confused faces of women in their 80s, one carried by an armed Hamas militant. Children also, including Ohad Munder, who marked his 9th birthday in captivity, bundled into a van alongside his grandmother and mother. Egyptian TV showed them taken to waiting Israeli ambulances, most of the hostages apparently healthy enough to walk. Israelis cheered after waiting all day to see if the deal to bring home these first of 240 hostages would actually happen.
It's just everything. Relieved, nervous, afraid, not uncertainty. I'm sad, I'm glad. It's everything together.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu promised today's release was just the start. We are committed to the return of all our hostages, he says. He also vowed to continue the war after this pause ended. Israel's part of the deal was to release Palestinian prisoners from its jails. 39 teens and women today welcomed and cheered in the West Bank. Mara Bakir was set free after spending 8 years in jail since she was 16. News of the deal to release us was a complete shock, she says. We had no idea what was going on in Gaza. As Israeli hostages were taken by helicopter to meet their families, both sides prepared for more releases as early as tomorrow. Sasha Petrusik, CBC News, Toronto.
Now, people in Winnipeg with ties to the region are closely watching the ceasefire. CBC's Zabina Ahmed has local reaction.
Hamas militants released 24 people, 13 Israeli women and children, 10 Thai workers, and another from the Philippines.
And will suffer long after they're released by the trauma caused by their capture and the captivity and the losses they have suffered. I believe that the important focus right now be on the return of all hostages unconditionally.
Gustavo Zentner says emotions are running high in Winnipeg's Jewish community, and the majority do not want to see an escalation of violence. He welcomes this first truce after 7 weeks of conflict.
It's providing an opportunity for some humanitarian thinking for all of us, not just people involved in this war, not just people that have families either in Gaza Strip or in Israel, to take pause and stop and understand, reflect on the values of human life above anything else.
The ceasefire deal was announced 3 days ago by the Qatari government. Egypt and US helped mediate the deal. As Hamas released the hostages, Israel freed the first group of 39 Palestinians detained in its prisons. University of Manitoba student Mohammed Dubail says he hopes his family in Gaza will receive the much-needed aid being delivered by the Red Cross.
We're in touch with them when we can be because resources are so slim. They barely get electricity, they barely get Wi-Fi. When we do get to call them, they just tell us to keep our spirits up. They tell us that regardless of what's happening, they keep their heads up.
Dubail says he has lost some family members to this conflict. He says the temporary ceasefire is not enough.
What progression does that bring in terms of rebuilding that society or trying to bring back everything they've lost, which is obviously borderline impossible, but Like, can you salvage it within 4 days? Of course not. You're preparing for another wave of whatever's been going on, unfortunately. So I don't think it does anything. It just gives like a little breathing room, but at the same time, it's like you put a timer on somebody's life.
The white and black checkered scarf has become a symbol of Palestinian solidarity.
The Kufiyya Day is to remember the ones that have died. It is a small thing, but carries a lot of meaning. You know, small actions carry more meanings than just words.
Over the 4-day truce, 50 hostages in Gaza and 150 detainees in Israel are expected to be freed. Israel has said the ceasefire could be extended if Hamas continues to release hostages at the rate of at least 10 per day. Zubina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, one major NDP election promise could already be in jeopardy. We're talking about the government's commitment to freeze electricity rates in 2025. The NDP is responding today by pointing fingers at its predecessor. CBC's Ian Fraze joins us live in the newsroom with more. Ian, the NDP talked for months about ending the rising cost of electricity. What has changed?
Well, now looks like Manitoba Hydro is going to lose money this fiscal year. A few months ago, Hydro's financial picture looked quite a bit better. The net income at that time was projected to be $450 million for this fiscal year. But in a new projection that came out today, it's now projected Hydro will lose $160 million. Big reason for this are drought conditions over the summer in parts of Manitoba, which lowered water levels and thus gives Hydro less excess energy to sell. Finance Minister Adrian Sala says the electricity freeze will still happen, but maybe later than planned.
I think obviously at this point with this news coming out, we will be looking at how we do that and looking forward to providing more information at a later date. But this may cause us to look at not if we do it, but when and how.
The NDP says the former PC government should have been more forthcoming about these details, but the PC's current hydro critic wasn't having it.
Been through the second quarter report, and it says at least 5 times that this is completely due to drought conditions and the weather. So when I got elected as a progressive conservative MLA, I didn't realize that we were in charge of the weather.
Okay, so Ian, another big NDP promise during the election campaign was fixing the healthcare system. The government did make an announcement on that today. It said it would reduce wait times in emergency rooms. What is that?
That commitment to hire dozens of more staff in hospitals in Winnipeg, Brandon, and Selkirk. Their main goal will be to discharge patients on the weekend. The thinking going that the fewer patients you have waiting around, it would create more space and thus lower wait times for those new patients. Details came out at a news conference today at HSC. Right now, as it stands, some discharges simply cannot happen on weekends. These are for the patients that have a little more complex needs. They might need a social worker or a rehabilitation assistant for help. Health Minister Azoma Asseguera says that change is needed and it will be helped with more staff around on weekends.
By the time Monday rolls around and now, allied healthcare folks and others are catching up on what's happened on the weekend, maybe your grandmother isn't getting that care again until late Monday or even Tuesday. And that really impacts people's ability to have good, improved healthcare outcomes and, quite frankly, to get home in a time that makes sense.
Asseguera is confident the health system will be able to find the staff it needs for this initiative. Riley.
Thanks, Ian. CBC's Ian Fraze in the newsroom tonight. All right, how would you feel about getting your garbage picked up every 2 weeks instead of every week? A City of Winnipeg survey on waste collection asks that question as it considers launching a curbside compost program. And as Cameron McLean tells us, some people who compost say it saves them a lot more space in their garbage cans.
Cindy Lazar has been composting for more than a year.
It's diverting so much from the garbage. It is good for the environment. It's making something good out of garbage.
City Council recently approved the creation of a curbside pickup program for residential food waste. They hope to have it running as early as 2026. An online survey asks people what they think of their garbage collection service ahead of contract renewals expected in 2027. It says many cities with compost programs do garbage collection every 2 weeks, something Lazar says she could live with.
Now that I am composting and diverting so much from the garbage stream, I don't actually have that much garbage in recycling, and so every 2 weeks would not be a problem for me.
Carrie Blackburn is the sales and customer service lead at Compost Winnipeg.
When we look at our own household waste, about 44% of our waste is compostable. And so by keeping that out of the landfill, it does wonders to extend the life of the landfill. And it also means that you don't need those collection services on a weekly basis.
Transcona Councillor Russ Wyatt had 2 motions before the Water and Waste Committee today. One, to expand the compost program to include commercial and industrial customers, and another to go to bi-weekly garbage pickup with a compost program. He wanted to reduce the amount of vehicles on the road.
We're going to keep organics out because they create methane, but we're also going to add a whole new fleet of vehicles onto the road every week that are, by the way, going to be emitting diesel fumes, CO2. Doesn't make any sense.
Water and Waste Chair Brian Mays and the committee voted to take no action on Wyatt's motions, at least for now.
Let's stay on the track. Let's get this thing voted on. Let's get it in place for residential and then move on from there. And on the other one,
the bi-weekly pickup?
Yeah, too early to. We'll have that debate in the spring.
The survey is open until November 30th. The results will be presented to Council in the spring. Cameron McLean, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The Winnipeg Jets have been on a bit of a winning streak, and they got a little bit more good news today. Head coach Rick Bowness will be back behind the bench for tonight's road game against the Florida Panthers. Bowness took a leave of absence a month ago now after his wife had a seizure. Associate coach Scott Arneal served as the interim head coach while Bowness was away. A Jets spokesperson confirms that Bowness has returned to the club. The team also posted video clips on social media of Bowness at the morning skate and shaking hands with players in the locker room. Well, it was certainly a bit of a chilly morning if you stepped outside early this morning in southern Manitoba, but the sunshine was nice. A look at our weather now. Here is Ethan Williams.
Thanks, Riley. And yeah, really not a lot of cloud cover to speak of through the province. Nice sunny day for Winnipeg and the south, and just some light cloud cover now moving in through the north. And temperatures definitely rebounding from yesterday. We're seeing not just Manitoba, but through Saskatchewan as well. Things really improving. Low minus single digits earlier this afternoon, and even some above freezing temperatures in northern Manitoba. And things are warming up as a result of a low pressure system, which is beginning to move in tonight into portions of northwestern Manitoba. The Paw, Flin Flon area probably getting some snowfall first, and then this low and all the moisture works its way southeastward through the day tomorrow, and by the time it reaches Winnipeg and much of the Red River Valley will probably be later into the evening, and then it's out of here pretty quickly as we head through Sunday with just another little system impacting southwestern Manitoba on Sunday evening. High pressure though moving in on Monday, which will begin to start clearing things out for us. But that system making things a little bit windy at times as well. Gusts this evening still in the 30 to 40 range, but those should back off a little bit as we get through the day tomorrow. And then tomorrow night into early Sunday, things start to pick up again. Could be in the 50 to 60 range in portions of the province, especially in the south. And then again, as that system moves away, we should start to see a bit of a reprieve. That next little system bringing through some wind in southwestern Manitoba Sunday. Now, overall, our jet stream pattern showing a kind of a diving trough here off to the east, and that means that temperatures will again begin cooling down. But for us, the trough is just far enough east that I think we'll be looking at near seasonal conditions for southern Manitoba the next week, but the north definitely could be getting a little bit colder. Now for Winnipeg tonight, looking at a 12 o'clock temperature of around -7, and those winds a little bit gusty at times, making that probably feel closer to -15. Increasing cloudiness through the day in advance of that system. So temperatures not moving much by 8 a.m., but winds backing off a bit. And then as that system gets closer, the clouds start to build in. We see the wind picking up a little bit toward the noon hour, but it's a southwesterly flow to the wind. So temperatures still not bad tomorrow. We'll probably be near the freezing mark or thereabout. Next few days, other than this system bringing maybe 1 to 3 centimeters to Winnipeg as we head overnight Saturday into Sunday, we'll see those temperatures drop as we get into Sunday on the other side of that system. and the winds picking up likely again on Sunday, maybe in that 50 to 60 range at times. Temperatures dropping again Monday with a little bit of increasing cloudiness, but there will be an increase in our temperatures coming a little bit later in the week, Riley. I'll have your full provincial forecast coming up.
All right, thanks, Ethan. Tonight is an unprecedented night of Métis success in our province's art scene. 3 Two-Spirit and Métis artists' work will be presented as part of a larger exhibit called 21st Century Métis Art, Identity and Innovation. Their work is being showcased on the closing night of Liqueur at the Manitoba Opera. That itself is the first full-scale Indigenous-led opera presented on a Canadian opera main stage. I spoke with 2 of the artists late this afternoon. Amanda Smart, thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.
So tell me what it means to have your work featured, not only, I guess, at Manitoba Opera, but here in the Centennial Concert Hall.
Yeah, it's huge. I think that, to quote Liz Barron, our curator, she said that the combination of us for Métis artists is going to resonate, and I think that that's something that's definitely fitting for this venue, and also to be able to, people who normally go and take in visual art, we are reaching a broader audience that I think, really need to hear these stories or see these stories and feel these stories. Same thing as what they're going to get when they see this performance this evening or throughout the week on stage. So, Métis people, as a people, we are storytellers, and every piece tells a story in itself. So.
How has, you're a filmmaker as well, but how has visual art and filmmaking, I guess, shaped your journey in your storytelling?
Oh, yeah. Well, let me see now. I'm actually going to be working on something with my grandmother in the future, possibly. But, these pieces here, they tell a story as it is. This is part of my heritage. It was my great-grandfather's fiddle. It was my grandfather's fiddle. And my great-grandfather is Pierre Falcon, and he wrote which became the Métis national anthem. And it commemorates the Battle of Seven Oaks. And my grandfather used to play the fiddle all the time in the kitchen, like Métis kitchen parties. And this is the pattern of my grandmother's kitchen floor that it's been there since before I was born. So, that's already a story in itself. But I think it speaks pretty loudly as it is. Yeah. So, and I hope it speaks to people who see it.
Yeah, so the people who are going to see this, I guess tonight and beyond, what do you hope they take out of seeing your work here?
Well, I hope they tell somebody about it and say, go take a look at this work. Because, and for myself too, I was like, wow, this had to be done. And it's great. And we were thanking everybody with the opera. And, personally for myself, it's a long way from being 10 years old and coming in with your little recorder playing hot crust buns alongside the symphony.
There are other Two-Spirit and Métis artists here as well. Jason Berg is one of them. Thank you for taking some time as well.
Thank you so much for having me today.
So what does it mean to you to have your work featured here?
I'm really honored. I just think I've always been really grateful to be a part of the Indigenous community, but I've always had a serious passion for our Métis community. So yeah, I'm honored to be the son of Doris Lanigan, the senator for the Métis Nation of Ontario, and just raised in a really strong political family. So it's really great to present art as well as to celebrate Liqueur.
What does it mean to see your work showcased in such an institution like the Centennial Concert Hall here in Winnipeg?
Once again, humbled and very grateful. I look forward to the collective celebrations with people. And it's also wonderful to be alongside some really fantastic other Métis artists.
You were talking about this piece in particular.
Yeah.
Why is this one in particular so important to you?
Why? Why is it important? Well, first of all, we're celebrating the opera tonight and the Métis storytelling and the women in Riel's life, from what I understand. And, I'm a female relative of Pierre Falcon, so passed down. And my grandmother was the one who's been telling me all these stories. My grandfather was Métis and my late grandfather. So I figured I'm the artist in the family. I have this amazing story. What can I do with it? I want to tell it, and how do I tell it? So here it is.
What do you hope the audience gets out of this when they're coming and viewing some of this and taking in what's happening here at the Centennial Concert Hall with the opera?
I hope they once again can see and love everything Métis, as well as our communities, our voices, champion our artists. I think there's so much to be seen and heard, and I think it's so important to support living culture.
I always say, you know, someone said this to me once too, and it was an elder at a film festival. They said, do it for yourself. Do it for you. Make it mean something for you. As long as it means something to you, other people will see that, and that's just part of the bigger picture.
And what do you say to young people who are maybe just getting started in trying to find and trying to discover who they are?
Their voice, I think, tell the wind, call it in, ask for your voice, work hard, don't be afraid. Just act in courage and pursue everything that you believe is worth pursuing and living for. Speak your truth. I think as Two-Spirit people, it's great to see in 2023, there's so much more support and acceptance of our Two-Spirit community. And I myself too am working hard to create new pathways for people who are just coming into their own in these spaces. So I just think, stand up, be present, use your gifts. We need them. So come forward.
Jason, good luck tonight.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor. Thanks again for having us.
Still ahead tonight, dozens were arrested in Dublin after a night of anti-immigrant rioting. The violence began after rumors circulated that a foreign national was responsible for an attack outside of a Dublin school. That story after the break. You're watching CBC Winnipeg News. Crews are cleaning up in central London after a night of violence. The riot appears to have started as an anti-immigrant protest fueled by misinformation on social media. But officials say the looting and destruction that followed had little to do with the protests. Chris Brown has more from London.
Many in Dublin woke up shaking their heads about the chain of violence that left large parts of the city broken and burned.
We've been out since 3 a.m. this morning, boarding up the windows. This here seems to be the worst hit. It's carnage, absolute carnage.
For a time Thursday night, the violence appeared unstoppable. 500 rioters torched or broke whatever they could. It took police hours to get crowds of masked vandals under control.
Last night, all we could hear was the explosions of the cars, the fireworks, everything. It was just scary.
Between the awful attack which happened at 1:30 in the afternoon and then the subsequent disorder, riot and looting in the city, in our city centre, it's just disgraceful scenes from start to finish.
It appeared to start with reports of a man stabbing school children, critically injuring a 5-year-old and wounding 2 other children and a woman.
It was horrendous, and the children screaming and the women screaming, and it was chaotic. It was absolutely chaotic.
Police say false information quickly spread through social media that the attacker might have been a foreigner, and that appeared to fuel the frenzy of destruction that followed. Ireland's Prime Minister placed the blame squarely on hooligans.
They did not do it out of any sense of patriotism, however warped. They did so because they're filled with hate.
For much of its history, Ireland has been a country people left from, not immigrated to. But that's changed, and this expert says far-right groups with anti-immigration agendas want to establish themselves.
It doesn't matter to them whether it's negative or positive. The point is that they're getting their key ideological ideas being discussed.
More than 30 rioters were arrested, and while the situation in parts of the city remains tense, Irish officials insist Dublin is safe. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Back in this country, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau wrapped up a 2-day Canada-EU summit in St. John's today.
The outcomes of this meeting are substantive and real, but as well, the actions we're going to be taking over the coming years, as we have over the past years, is going to make a real difference for people, not just in Europe and in Canada, but around the world.
He was hosting both the European Council President and European Commission President at the 19th Leaders Summit. The packed agenda included addressing climate change and the ongoing conflict in Ukraine and in the Middle East. But also high on the list for both sides was promoting green hydrogen. That is hydrogen that is produced using renewable energy such as wind and solar. Newfoundland and Labrador hopes to become a major hydrogen producer as it eyes potential European markets. Homelessness is a growing challenge in cities right across Canada, including here in our province. And for overcrowded shelters, it is a constant struggle to try and help people who have nowhere to go during harsh winter days. Advocates say the long-standing problem is still being addressed with only bandage solutions. Jamie Strachan reports.
This is where Toronto's bursting homeless population is supposed to find directions to a shelter bed, a place to sleep for the night. But Rose Massey can tell you it's not that simple.
Naturally, it's getting very chilly, and if they can put 62-year-old woman and sick with 12 different health issues and expect them to stay over there, and they think it's a joke.
Massey has been waiting weeks as the city confronts a basic issue. Too many people, not enough beds.
It's just this confluence of perfect storm conditions.
On top of an already vulnerable population driven onto the streets by addiction and economic hardship, the city has been dealing with a new client.
We also have an increase in the number of refugee claimants coming to the country. So these are people who are escaping any number of different situations globally. And frankly, we want them to come to Canada. We need more people, we need their skills, but we don't have the housing.
Toronto's far from alone. Vancouver's unhoused population has increased by more than 30% since 2020, with almost half living outside. In Edmonton, more than a third of the growing homeless population is without a bed.
This never ends.
This advocate tries to make life on Edmonton streets a little more tolerable.
We know winter is going to come every year, and yet nothing is done till the last minute, and what's done then is nothing but bandages, as opposed to real solutions.
Cities say they can't do it alone and are appealing to other levels of government for help.
We've been asking the federal government to step up and support with the shelter system. So this hasn't been an overnight problem.
On the verge of winter, the search for answers and warmth is urgent. Jamie Strachan, CBC News, Toronto.
Coming up, vulnerable people have been losing their homes in what police describe as a widespread and elaborate scam. We'll have that story just ahead. Vulnerable people have been losing their homes in what police describe as a widespread, elaborate scam. with many properties at stake. CBC Marketplace has also been investigating. David Common is here to talk about their findings.
Anas Ayub was living the high life, flaunting a Lamborghini and a rags-to-riches story. But police ended up seizing the prized sports car. He's facing multiple lawsuits as homeowners accuse Ayub of enriching himself by conning them.
Off of scams like the one that happened to me.
Sherry Clark has multiple sclerosis, lives on a limited income, and got a call telling her she was entitled to free renovations.
There was 2 people that did the paint. Oh, they also put in the pot lights, which all of this was free.
Or so they said.
So they said.
In reality, they charged her more than $192,000 and had her pay for it using a complex legal tool, a financial claim against her property title, from a company where Anas Ayub was the sole director.
What should happen to the people who did this to you?
Oh, go to jail.
Ayub has not been charged, but Marketplace has found vulnerable victims of a similar complex mortgage scheme across Ontario. Some are now facing the possible loss of their homes. Lawyers connected to some of the transactions have been suspended, pending further investigation, while some mortgage brokers are facing the potential loss of their licenses. Police say they continue to investigate. So where is Anas Ayub?
As far as we know, he's fled the country.
Lawyer Greg Whedon represents many of the alleged victims.
Has the OPP failed?
The fact that he was able to get out of the country with all these victims' funds at the end of the day, it's just a complete failure.
Through his lawyer, Ayub denies involvement in any scheme, claims mortgages were signed voluntarily, that he remains a Canadian resident, and that he's always conducted his business dealings lawfully. David Common, CBC News, Toronto.
For the full investigation, you can watch Housing Heist 2 tonight on Marketplace. That's at 8 o'clock tonight on CBC Television and on CBC Gem.
Weather Update is brought to you by the art and beauty of the National Ballet of Ukraine. January 29th at the Burton Cummings Theatre. Tickets at nationalballetukraine.com.
All right, let's get back to weather specialist Ethan Williams. And you were saying some parts of the province are expecting some snow.
That's right, Riley, and I think a lot of us are going to be seeing some amount of snow through the weekend here. Again, heaviest amounts tomorrow kind of in an area from around the Flin Flon area, eastward to around Oxford House, God's Lake, maybe getting upwards of 5 centimeters there. Even in portions of the inner lake, we could see 2 to 4 centimeters. For Winnipeg and much of southern Manitoba, though, I think we're only looking for maybe a couple of centimeters at most. In the meantime, the rest of your provincial forecast tonight looking like this. Some chilly temperatures in northwestern Ontario down around -10 as that sky clears out, getting rid of that blanket of cloud cover, keeping us warm, and a bit gusty at times in places like Kenora and Red Lake, likely making that feel closer to -15, maybe even -20 at times. For the Winnipeg area and much of southeastern Manitoba, similar temperatures here, down around -10 with that wind picking up at times, maybe a little bit of some snow flurries in the Interlake as well. For southwestern Manitoba, including the Brandon area, dropping a little bit further around -15 or so. And again, winds may be a little bit breezier still through the evening, upwards of 50 kilometers an hour, but those should be dying down, though, as we go through the night. It's in the north where we start to see a little bit of that snow moving in as a result of that low pressure system, and probably areas a little further to the east, Island Lake, Churchill, maybe the God's Lake area, looking at some snow, but still clearing, though, as we get out west with some breezy conditions this evening. And as we get into tomorrow, that's when the brunt of that system really starts to impact us, upwards of 5 centimeters in places like Flin Flon and Norway House, 2 to 4 in other locations still. And you see kind of a wide range of temperatures here. The far north closer to -10, but still some seasonal and above seasonal conditions really as you get into other portions of the north as they're a little closer to the freezing mark. For southwestern Manitoba, again, the freezing mark is about where you will be too. And still looking at winds picking up here and there. from the west and southwest. So again, that kind of warmer flow. We're not getting those brisk northerly winds, but there still even could be a couple of centimeters in portions of the parkland, and the Dauphin area may be looking at a 1 or 2 centimeters of snow, just a chance of flurries in Brandon. For Winnipeg and for much of the Red River Valley and for the rest of southeastern Manitoba, again, we'll see that increasing cloudiness through the day. So starting on a bit of a sunny note and then the cloud building in as we go along. The winds will be a little bit breezy at times in the Winnipeg area, and I think in the Inner Lake, in Gimli and Barons River, maybe a little bit of snow possible there. For northwestern Ontario, we're looking at mostly clear skies for you folks, especially the further south and east you go, maybe a little bit cloudier in the Red Lake area. But otherwise, Riley, we are looking for that snow moving in, and I'll have the details in your full 7-day forecast, which is coming up.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Ethan. We are inching closer to the holiday season, and that can bring a lot of stress to families. With the rising cost of everything, some families are struggling to make ends meet. That's why a local Winnipegger is holding a book drive for families in need. Jennifer Spence is a family support worker at the Aboriginal Health and Wellness Centre. She's making Advent calendars with these books to encourage family literacy. I spoke with her earlier today. So we're here at the Insight Mentoring Program at the Aboriginal Health and Wellness Centre. We're just off Higgins Avenue, and I'm here with Jennifer Spence. Thank you so much for taking some time today.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me, why are all of these books here?
Well, it started as a really crazy idea that I got from Facebook/Pinterest, and I brought it up. Well, you know, it's Christmas coming up, and we're looking at ways to help our families to have a good Christmas. And I went, well, what if we made some Advent calendars, and instead of, you know, candy or chocolate, let's make them with books and encourage families to read. We were collecting to ensure that everybody took 25 books home. 24 of them they would pick, and then we would give that 25th book pre-wrapped and ready, something they could open on Christmas Day. But the idea is that you take one book from the pile that you have and read it every day, one book every day. Or however you want to do it, whatever works for your family. But at the end of that month of December, you've got a library of books now.
How many books have you collected to date?
At last count, we counted 1,101 books.
And tell me about some of the books that you're hoping that some of these families get.
Okay, being that we're an Indigenous-based program, you know, we wanted to provide books that show Indigenous people. And so representation is really important. When you're telling stories, we often talk about, like, you know, Cinderella or, you know, Disney movie stories, but we have stories too as Indigenous people. And so I wanted to see how many books we could collect as a program that would give all of our families something that shows them that, you know, we exist.
To show that the community has given, you know, this much, you know, over 1,100 books and counting so far, what does it mean to you to see this much coming from the community?
My heart is so full. I feel like we as a community, I think we know how to take care of one another, and I've seen it in the past. We've been able to, you know, put a call out, well, you know, we need this, and people come together, and I'm always so grateful when that happens. So I feel very full and happy and proud.
What do you hope that the children, the families that are getting these books, get out of them?
One of the most important things that I think is what motivated me maybe to do this was that families would bond. Sometimes families don't get that opportunity right away. And in whatever capacity that you can bond with your kids, reading is a good way to start. Telling stories is a good way to start that. And I'd hope that maybe we could promote family bonding, but literacy, so important. And then maybe one day we'll have future storytellers and then add to this pile of books.
And what's the importance, I guess, you guys have some books here that you've gotten in some of the traditional languages. What is the importance of having those in the collection as well?
So from my perspective, when I was a university student, we were taught that language is like the breath of our culture. So we want to teach people that as long as you're still saying words in your language, you still exist as a people. And so promoting, for instance, language, we're hoping that families will continue to speak to one another and, you know, carry on that language. I'd like to see all the little libraries that exist in, like, the streets, the little free libraries, like, go fill those up. That those are so they're so integral to our, again, our mission to promote bonding, and go read with your kids, but take books there and fill them up.
So kind of a pay it forward, I guess,
Absolutely.
if you will.
Absolutely.
Jennifer, thank you so much for taking some time, and good luck getting all these
you.
wrapped. You're running out of time to get all these wrapped, so I hope you guys can get it done soon.
I anticipate that we're going to have a really fun day sometime next week.
Well, for many of us growing up, MuchMusic was the channel to watch for all things pop culture. Now a new documentary about MuchMusic is giving fans an inside peek into the beloved music channel. We'll chat with former Electric Circus host Monica Deal about why she still thinks people feel such a connection to the music channel next. A new documentary about MuchMusic is giving fans an inside peek into the beloved music channel. It's called 299 Queen Street West, the MuchMusic documentary. Using never-before-seen archival footage, it tells a story of how a scrappy television channel turned into a national phenomenon. Former Electric Circus host Monica Deal, who is originally from Beausejour, spoke with CBC's Pat Kanuga this morning on Information Radio. Here is an edited version of that conversation.
There weren't any studios. You did the shows inside of the workspace.
I realized at the beginning there was nothing that we wouldn't do or play.
There was no script, there was no direction, there was nothing like this in the world.
The very first time I walked into the building, it hit me like I need to be here.
She's on the line now from Vancouver. Good morning, Monica.
Good morning.
Thank you for
How
joining.
Are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for joining us very early in Vancouver right now. And when I first heard about this documentary months ago, I was excited to see it. You're going to be here Monday. I'm excited to see it Monday. We heard from you in that clip. You said, I knew I had to be there. Why did you have to be there?
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll tell you why. Because when I walked in that building, I mean, it was one of those moments you never forget as long as you live. I walked in and I was expecting a fairly conservative, staid television studio, what I thought was a TV studio. I walked in and it was this open room with a gazillion people everywhere, and they were all colors, shapes, sizes, ages, looks, as in someone looked like a rocker, someone looked goth, someone looked like a normal person walking around in a hoodie. And everybody was doing something, and it was the energy and the interaction, and it was just energy. It was just bouncing off the walls. And I thought, I've never felt like I belonged.
Now, Monica, for your time on the channel, what sticks out to you the most out of all the things you did? EC was huge, of course, and pop culture and dance and introducing different kinds of music. What sticks out for you?
So what stands out to me is, there's so much because it really was life-changing. But what stands out to me is how lucky I was to be a part of making that kind of television. Everything live, everything just kind of spontaneous, taking a chance and making it work. What stands out to me is how much we connected with people across this country. That all these years later, it still resonates with them is amazing. What stands out to me is that Moses Neimer, the head of our station, changed the way television was done, not only in Toronto and Canada, but in North America. I remember Barry Diller from Fox and Fred Silverman from whatever it was,
NBC,
ABC,
probably.
NBC, yeah. I remember all these guys walking the hallways of 299 Queen Street West with Moses Neimer and watching how we did things. Producers from MTV came up to watch Electric Circus saying, how do you do this? Because we could never do our Club MTV live like this. So then all of a sudden you turn on these shows in America and, there's people standing outside on the street and they're doing a concert and closing off the street to have a pop star do a song. Like, he changed the way television was made.
Yeah, without a doubt. When you heard the documentary was going to be made, what did you think?
Initially, I thought, okay, there's a lot. And I will say it's very well done. It's like a concert. It's not like seeing a movie. It's like going to a concert. You all know the words. You all know the song, basically. It's really, really fun. It's loud. The whole crowd reacts to everything. It's not like watching a movie. So what I thought initially is not what I think now. I thought it would be like a movie. It's not. It is an experience, and it's really wild, well done, and everyone should come see it.
You can find that full interview on our CBC Manitoba YouTube channel. As we head to break, we want to take a moment and say goodbye to someone who is familiar to a lot of CBC radio listeners and who has worked behind the scenes on many of CBC Manitoba's best television shows. Lori Hoog-Stratton did her final sign-off today as she heads into retirement.
We've been paid to do what I just love doing, which is like talk and write and so on. And I've had such great opportunities here and made such dear close friends who I will cherish all the way through and meet for, cocktails and stuff. Back in the day when I started, you had cocktails like pretty much in the studio. But they kind of frown on that now. Thank you, dear listeners. Let's stay in touch. Like the song says, ain't it funny how time slips away? Bye-bye.
Lori, thank you and goodbye. I will miss you, we'll miss you, and enjoy your next adventure.
Well, again, starting the day sunny in Winnipeg tomorrow, but a little bit of increasing cloudiness, about 1 to 2 centimeters maybe at most overnight Saturday into Sunday. Our temperatures dropping as we head through the weekend with a bit of increasing cloudiness, maybe some flurries on Tuesday, but a return to more seasonal conditions and some sunshine as well. And even those overnight lows, Riley, starting to pull themselves out from the minus double digits. So overall, not too bad of a forecast for this time of year.
All right. Thank you so much, Ethan. Well, we often say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and that applies to Christmas trees as well. Late night host Jimmy Fallon took notice of some Canadian Christmas celebrations this week, gently poking fun at an Ontario town's Christmas lighting ceremony. Now, the tree itself, like mine, is in a little bit of rough shape, so organizers decided to take a unique approach for the lights this year, and the crowd's stunned reaction is our daily lift.
People made some aesthetic choices about what to do with the tree, and it came out unique.
What the hell?
The tree lighting, it's been a ritual. And last month, Aurelia has been broadcasting. It was going to be a big display, and it was going to be better than all the other years. As soon as I saw it light up, I'm like, oh, seriously? That's what we're got here?
The tree's not in really good health. It's dying, and so it was made to let's try this. So we did try this. And we tried this new unique looking Christmas tree.
It looked like a palm tree.
You kind of just have to take it with a bit of a light heart.
You know it's bad when it makes it on Jimmy Fallon.
It's going viral. A town in Canada just held their big Christmas tree lighting.
Oh boy.
That's it? What the hell?
The tree got lit.
You know you messed up when you get a Canadian man enough to say hell.
I'm pretty sure that's not what we want to be known for, but hey, it could be worse, I guess.
So, in the town's defense, I think it's the thought that counts. Thank you for being with us tonight. I'll see you again at 11. Have a great weekend.